thanks again to you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. The easier people can get to fun things to do, then the more likely they are to stay and keep coming back. So, um, it's something like I said, we're working on. We want to work on improving general ability to do that, and this is a nice step. There's a stopgap to having a better system in general, but both better event system and a better group system are going to be important for long term. Um, Anonymous says, great, a character limit too. I guess somebody hit the character limit on Slido's questions. I'm not sure what the character limit. Let's see. Is there a chance for more typical camera controls in Science Space? That portion of the interface is a barrier to new users based on friends who've tried Science Space. I guess it depends on what you mean by typical. I mean, we're very different um, from other virtual worlds in some cases, but we're not very different from other games, or we're not very different from, of course, Unity itself. We have several different camera modes. The default camera mode is pretty straightforward for how most 3D environments work. Holding right mouse button to orbit and mouse wheel to zoom in, that kind of thing. We may not be doing a good job of communicating those. One of the things we've been talking about is we really need like a proper tutorial for the first time people log in. We've done this in some specific regions for events or special use cases and stuff. And we've had some people who are using the platform implement it as well in their own projects, where you log in and the first thing that pops up is a little dialogue box with an arrow pointing at buttons saying, this is the talk button, and this is how you move your camera, and this how you move your avatar buttons, and how you find events and things like that. Just and you go, okay, I get that, and okay, I get that, and dismiss those. And we've been talking about that might be something we should just implement in the viewer in general for like hints that pop up contextually and actually point at what you're supposed to be clicking on and things like that. Right now, our camera hints do exist, but they're just like a little bubble that shows up in the bottom right, and that's probably not the most intuitive way to onboard users. It's great as a reference for people who just forgot, like, oh, was it control or shift that I'm supposed to be holding? Then you can glance at the reference. But for a brand new user, it's probably a bit overwhelming still, and probably should be peeled out to them in a more user-friendly way. Yeah, a game-based tutorial for the controls is yeah, a great idea. So some like a quest maybe even could just do it. Like just have a quest that initiates automatically, and then they as they go through the quest, it explains.
I actually learned how to use the camera controls at one of Snowtrack's events. I'm doing it right now. And apparently some of you guys know this. If I hold the right mouse button down and just use the left and right arrows and the up and down arrows and the page up and the page down, some of you called it helicopter mode or something. It is
Fly cam is what it's called. Yeah.
it's so easy to use. I mean, like 3 months before I found out about it accidentally at an event. So I'm
Yeah,
all on board for that FAQ thing. Good idea.
yeah, we actually have like I think four camera modes if you don't count special cases, but like there's the standard follow your avatar mode where he just follows you around, all in third person, and then of course we have the first person camera modes where you can scroll in or press M and you can see your own perspective. There's also a the fly cam mode as you're talking about, where hold down the right mouse button and then you use the normal um, left, right, up, down keys, and you can just free fly your camera around the region independently of your avatar. And actually, even like if you hold Shift, the run button works in that mode also, so you can speed up how fast your camera is moving around. That's what I use most of the time, honestly. My camera is usually like free flying around the place, independently of my avatar. We also have a Unity camera mode that you can switch into, I believe, using the tab key, and that makes your camera controls work the same way in Science Space as they do in the Unity editor. And I think there's another mode that I'm forgetting. Like there's a whole bunch of different camera modes in there, and they all work slightly differently for slightly different purposes. But we try to be flexible, but sometimes that flexibility means complexity, and that can be overwhelming, and as AJ puts it, off-putting to new users who may not necessarily realize they switched camera modes, and now their controls work completely differently than they thought they did before, and they may not be sure how to get back just by pressing escape or whatever. So yeah, I think we've been putting some stuff in there to help with that. Like we had a lot of users who were accidentally going into first person mode and had no idea how to get out. So we added a prompt. So when you go into first person, we try to go into first person mode. It's like, hey, do you want to actually do this? This is what you just tried. And I think it might not be a bad idea to have something like that for some of the other camera modes. Like the first time you try to do fly cam or something, an actual box pops up and says, hey, you just switched camera modes. This is what the mode you're in now, and this is how you get out of it if you didn't mean to do that, that kind of thing. So yeah, we definitely could do a lot better in our new user onboarding tutorials there. Gabby says, if Sciencebase doesn't slap me, I could add an item that adds a greeter icon on top of the greeters' heads. Yeah, I mean, our greeters, I believe, have a title that they use. But there's no reason you couldn't have just an attachment that has a light over your head or something if you wanted to, as long as it wasn't like throwing particles all over the place and being crazy and wild or loud recurring sound effects or something like that. Then yeah, I don't think anybody cares if there's a little head. All kinds of fun uses for that. Let's see. Questions coming in. The guides greeter program's expanding. Can we add a merit badge for those good extra special skill knowledge like multiple camera modes? Yeah, that's not a bad idea. There's another game that I play sometimes that's added like a new kind of guides program that works that way, where you can say I'm a guide for this skill instead of just being a generalized guide, and that way people have a better idea of who they can seek out to get answers to specific issues. And maybe that's something we can look at implementing somewhere, like in the profile or something. It's not a bad idea. It's probably not going to be a high priority change, but it's probably also wouldn't be a terribly complicated change. We'll discuss that see if it makes sense. As the guide program expands, it's easy for one guide to say, oh, that's, you should actually go talk to this other person about that, and redirect people. But if we can take off some of the load off by giving people the ability to kind of self-navigate to the right person, I think that's not a bad idea. Although I would say in general, it'd be nice if the guides were fairly generalist, and so any guide could answer general questions, like camera questions is something the guide should be able to answer. And if they don't, they need some on-the-job training, I guess. So let's see. Looking at questions here, camera questions, we talked about those. Rob asks, when editing your region, your avatar's in the way a lot when moving, sizing. Is there a way to get your avatar out of the way? I don't mean for. Well, I mean, your avatar stays where you left it when you entered the region editing mode. So, I guess don't park your avatar where you want to be stuff around. I suppose we could add a toggle in the room editor to hide your avatar while you're editing. You just have a button you can say to hide and show. That'd actually be super simple. We actually already have a mechanism for hiding and showing your avatar that's used by various things, like vehicles can use it. There's a button that says hide the avatar when they're in this vehicle, and then they reappear when they get out of the vehicle, because some vehicles doesn't make sense to be able to see the avatar. So yeah, it'd be super easy just to add a button that calls back to that function, if that's. But as generally speaking, don't stand where you want to move your couch. Yeah, that you can't currently do that, but it would be easy to add the hiding your avatar thing. But yeah, I guess we could have it. There's some like more advanced stuff we could do, of course. Like, I mean, we could have it so that if you try to move something on top of your avatar, it moves your avatar for you or something like that. But that's going to be more work than just hiding your avatar out of the way. So if we wanted to do something like that, it'd probably be a much later thing, and whereas hiding would be a much quicker short-term thing that we could add. I don't know if that's a problem that people routinely have though, but I'm usually not against more options as long as it doesn't unnecessarily clutter the interface up. Because at some point, if you just have buttons everywhere, your user interface becomes quite inscrutable, and that's often worse than having not enough buttons. So sometimes simple things, are easier to use, and maybe that's an advanced option we hide away someplace. And, we could even just put it in the settings menu someplace. Anytime I use the room editor, don't show my avatar or something, so it's not cluttering up the actual room editor interface. Yeah, it's actually a complaint that we've gotten about our own interface as well. And it's something that we're evaluating long term. Like we've got people who like log in and they're like, I've got all these buttons at the bottom, on the bottom left, and the bottom right, and the top. The region itself may have buttons in it. You've got the hotbar there, which by default usually empty, so it just looks like 10 blank buttons there for some reason. So yeah, we've had people tell us that even our interface, which is starts out fairly slim, um, is too much to start off with, and they want to gradually introduce users to the complexity. So that is feedback that we are taking on board and thinking about in terms of, uh, is there a way we can spoon feed the interface to new users as they come on board, rather than just like, boom, here's everything you can do all at once. And is there things that make sense to like hide inside collapsing drawers or behind other menus? It's a general UX discussion that we're having behind the scenes. So it's one of the things, like somebody's like, hey, can we also do this? We're like, well, it's another button. Where does it go? Is that too much clutter? Is there a better way to do that than just putting another button on the screen? Um, Mimi asks, is there any chance someday a region owner will be able to upload an image to the region's title picture / page? I'd love to be able to make a region page match the title name. I'm not sure what you mean there. You mean in terms of like, it sounds like what you're talking about is like if you buy a region template off the store and you make a region using that template, by default, it's using the splash screen from the template. You want to be able to just add your own splash screen into it. Yeah, that is actually something that we've been talking about. Being able to customize that probably would be something that's done through Curator. But the regions that are created um, created and then set up using a template. Something when you just go into your home button and say create a new region, make it this template. They're a little bit different than regions that are uploaded as those regions originally. They do have that option in the database to have a different image. By default, they just take on whatever the template is, but it would have to be set up a little bit differently in Curator to handle those types of regions versus regions that were actually uploaded and then as a distinct. But yeah, it is a good idea, and it's something that we want to do. It's just on the list someplace. Yeah, and AJ mentions actual detailed tutorials, quests, and new user areas with those things would be awesome. And yeah, we actually last year and beginning of this year started working on a whole new user onboarding experience that included, going to specific regions, being given those quests to go through tutorials and things like that, and being guided more into both learning about their avatar, learning how to get around, but also being guided into events and activities and games and things like that that kind of start users off on a, hey, let us show you what you can do, instead of you having to go and find it, or having to have somebody run over to you and try and breathlessly explain to you all the cool stuff that they know about. But the it's something we're still working on. Unfortunately, got the priority of that's lower than some other stuff we're working on, so we still want to do that, but it's coming along slower than we'd like at the moment. I got the frog in my throat there. So yeah, the onboarding experience is something that we're taking a hard look at, and we are actively working on some for that. It's just I can't give you a timeline on when those will be ready to roll out. Yeah, let me pop over to Slido here. And Sidearm says, "Kudos just knows my backlog of obsolete quest messages is cleared out." Yeah, that's a change we implemented actually a little while back. Was it's supposed to start hiding off any quests that are like old quests that you haven't done in a while, um, so that hopefully kind of keep clutter down. Because we know that as more users come on and more regions and more quests get made, and that really starts to fill up and become unmanageable. So making up several changes to try and um, keep that window useful without just being a huge list of quests that you did 6 months ago and forgot about. Let's see. Um, AJ is saying he has a relatively new user. The onboarding was difficult. Fortunately, you already knew people in the world. Um, yeah, but having something you could work on would be really helpful. Yeah, that's exactly where we want to go with that. Is uh, you know, we want people to come in and immediately have something to do, have something to accomplish, and we've got a bunch of ideas around that and some stuff in in the works. Some of it's using our quest system, some of it's some new stuff we're working on, but we want to guide people into things, guide people in, and guide people to places where they can have a fun social experience with other users. Let's see. So Sidearm has another question. Sidearm is kind of I feel like I ask 50% of the questions in any given tech hour here. Uh, Status of improvements to direct web URL access to ScienceSpace. Current version still conks out high memory destinations. Yeah, so um, we do have a solution in the works for that. We're very, It's actually like one of our highest priorities right now. I can't tell you a whole lot about it right now, but we should be able to, like we have a hard deadline of like the end of this month to make that new web setup a reality. So you'll be hearing more about that in the near future. Some people may have already seen some demo videos we sent out to a few people, but um, direct web URL access is very important, and it's becoming more and more important. And it's something that we just have an incredible amount of demand for. So you will be seeing a solution for that. We're actually deprecating the current WebGL viewer just because WebGL is too limited. It can't deliver the experience and the quality and the performance that we want to offer as a science base on the web product. So it's we're not turning it off immediately, but once we get this new system in line, we will be in switching people over who want to use it to this new system, and getting away from the WebGL system just because it just can't do it.
Just a comment, that is such good news because what I'm hearing from the educator circles I work with is school systems are adopting Chromebooks left and right,
Absolutely.
and and the
I have like 3 Chromebooks in my house. I love them. But you're absolutely right. The Chromebooks are for the last couple of years, especially, have just taken over the education space. I mean, they're in middle schools, they're in high schools, they're in colleges. Um, these schools and universities can, for like $200 a student, can have these robust machines. They have very little maintenance, very little IT overhead on them, and if a student breaks them, it's not a it's not a huge issue, and then they've got words, Excel's, spreadsheets, and PowerPoint, and Google, and there's even like graphics programs you can run straight in there, and they can run Android apps and stuff like that. So the Chromebooks are just kind of taking over. Like I said, I love mine, and we're one of our goals is to make this web solution functional for Chromebooks as well. And we just want it to work on basically if you have a web browser, it'll work, and that's very important to us. It's very important to a lot of people, both who want to use the platform on the main grid. We've got educators who want to use it. We've got corporate clients who want to use it. We've got people. I mean, this enables someone to just simply like go to a library and use the library computer to log on if they want to. And their computer doesn't even have to have high specs. Like any computer. This is very important for us that we have a functional web-based solution, and so you will be seeing a lot more about that in the coming weeks. So yeah, well, like I said, more information about that coming later, but very important to us. Let's see. Okay, so I've cleared all the questions out of Slido here. If anybody else has any questions, feel free to throw them in there. Reminder, if you're watching on YouTube or Twitch, you can go to sli.do and enter event code 73305. You can contribute questions as well without having to be logged in. And I'm trying to scroll back up and see if I missed anything in chat here.
I have a follow-up question, Mr. President. So I'm glad to hear about the direct web URL access. Is it reasonable to assume that the enhancements that we are feeding you every week, some of the kind of user interface, human factor, blah, 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 those kind of will go into the web URL? It's not like you have to reinvent it from scratch, is it? I mean, you.
No, you are absolutely correct. In fact, the web version will have complete parity with the desktop version. It will always be running whatever the latest version is. So anything we make a change to the Mac or the Windows version, you will see that on the web version as well. It doesn't require us to maintain.
Don't you mention that word?
What, branching?
No, you said Mac.
Oh, yeah. Well, hey, this gives Mac users, an alternative if their Mac is just not up to it, and let's face it, most aren't. They can use the web version, and it doesn't matter, how powerful their machine is.
Exactly. It's just a web URL. You can use it with a Mac. You can use it with a Chromebook. You can use it with a, etc. I guess you can use this on iPad. I don't know.
I mean, we do have mobile viewers, which may make more sense there. But especially if it's an older iPad, then yeah, maybe it makes more sense to go to the web version. And it should work there. We've been doing some tests on that. There's a few bugs to work on there, but our early tests, at least on Android tablet that we tried, are like, yeah, this should work. It's a browser, it's an option. So. We want to continue to have, we're always going to have the standalone Mac, Windows, Android, iOS, viewers that you can install on your machine, whatever your device is. But it's also very important for us to have a robust web solution. That's actually something we're actively working on right now. It's something I'm going to be working on later today as well.
And Cindy's going to be working on Mac Lives Matter t-shirts.
Yeah, okay. I want no part of that myself, but yeah, knock yourself out. AJ is playing with the fly cam and having a lot of fun, apparently. Yeah, so yeah, this is kind of going back to that issue we were talking about earlier. It's like, the platform for months perhaps and never even realized there was a fly cam, and so they're like, wait, there's a fly cam, and then they try it like, this is awesome, why did I not know about this for 3 months? So that's really that really comes back to us, like I said.
Carson's got an update chat also.
FYI, the memory usage computer is actually using less memory than main computer, only 2.5 gig versus the 7 gig on main computer. It may have something to do with your graphics settings. Like, are they running the same graphics settings in panel there? Because that we do a lot of dynamic, like that's those sliders don't just adjust like your draw distance and stuff. There's a lot more going on behind the scenes in terms, shader complexity and texture complexity, a lot of that kind of stuff. So, if you've got two machines using drastically different memory, that's actually quite interesting, and maybe we should take a closer look at that. Now your main computer's RAM usage is dropping now. Yeah, if they go down to relatively the same, they're never going to be exactly the same. Part of it also is the memory usage isn't necessarily active memory. Like sometimes, a program may use up a lot of memory and then go to a less complex scene. It doesn't need as much memory, but if the operating system doesn't reclaim it, then that's just kind of cache sitting there waiting to be. The operating system says, "Oh no, I need to take that away from you, give it to an application." So part of it's also going to depend on like how much system memory each machine has and how greedy the operating system is about reclaiming every little scrap it can. If you have less on one other machine, yeah, garbage collection's a big part of it as well. It may be on one machine that garbage collection happened, earlier than it happened on another machine, so it cleared some stuff out. Yeah, so Jamie's probably on a Mac and is confused about the right mouse button. I believe Macs have an alternative key, but Macs also do have a right mouse button. They have a way to emulate it at least. I believe it's like Command click or Command Alt click or something. I don't actually have a Mac myself. I had one in college, and that was a long time ago, and I've forgotten most of the shortcut keys. But if you Google MacBook right mouse button or something, it'll tell you what the buttons do. It may be slightly different on Macs specifically for that reason. We can dig up some answers for you on that. Except I don't have a Mac, but I can dig around in the Mac documentation and code and figure out what the equivalent button is. We're not pushing your buttons for you, Jamie. Yeah. If you've never used Flycam, I mean, there is a button to trigger it. Just like I said, I'm not sure what it is on Mac. So, I think we talked about this not last week because I wasn't here, but the week before or something, that our Mac documentation needs to be updated significantly, and we're actually doing some work on that documentation behind the scenes. We're talking about this morning that we might need to requisition a couple more Macs for the company, just so we have more people who are more familiar with them and get their hands on them more for QA testing and that kind of stuff, and training people to use, because we do get a lot of Mac questions, but very few people in the company actually use one. So it's oftentimes it's like, oh, Mac question, hold on, I gotta go ask somebody else, and I don't want to spread that around a little bit.
Yeah, I just looked that up. It is Control click is the same as doing right.
Okay. That's a matter of whether our viewer is making specific changes for the Mac keyboard mapping, or whether it's just using the right mouse button mapping. So I will get some answers on that. I may have to go look at our input code and see if it's alt click for Jamie. I don't know if it's a customizable thing in the Mac OS, whether you can customize what that is, or maybe it's based on which Mac OS version you're using. I don't know, but I'm saying Mac a lot. I hope that's not giving anybody.
Yeah, I'm starting to twitch here. If we could, like, yeah, move on.
Okay. Let's see. Well, there's no questions in Slido right now, so hey, if you got questions, throw them at me here. It's about 15 minutes top of the hour here, so I don't want to go too much over, but don't give me questions, then to prattle on about something.
I did hear Josh talking about the tutorials for little bits and pieces. People new coming into the world. We are actually working on tutorial videos. As part of the community team meeting. So, I mean, if you've got any ideas for tutorials you'd like us to include, doesn't have to be stuff to do with creating in Unity. It can be anything within the viewer. Just hit me, Les, or one of the other community team up, and we can.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, I'm reminded by you saying tutorials that Richie actually found a couple of spare minutes to update our public GitHub. So there's 5 new projects up there currently that people can go look at. I think I wrote all of them, but
Yeah, there are a couple that I've been working on, but I thought I'd save those for this week because I was going to try and make sure that I put some new ones up there every week. So
yeah, that's a good point to make. Is we're going to be adding stuff ongoing. There's 5 new ones, which are the first batch that are going up here. But there will be more going up as well. I hope you guys can look at those and run with them, make some cool stuff with them. There's some of them are very simple, some of them are more complex. But they're all good various use cases for using Lua. One of them is called Distance Animator, and it's a very tiny little script. I think it's all like 10 or 12 lines, but you can attach it to an object that has an animator component, and then that animation happens based on the distance of your avatar to that object. So as you approach it, animation progresses, and as you walk away, the animation goes backwards. And I've already seen some people do some amazing interactive effects, just being able to control, just being able to have animated events react to the presence of your avatar rather than just those events just going on their own. That extra little feeling of interaction is really cool. I've already seen some really cool. If you guys can do some cool fun stuff with it, I'd love to hear about it and go see it. Like it's a very simple script, but it should be very easy to use, and I'd love to see what you can do with that. There
was a couple of scripts there that Josh had given me that didn't have any of the sit poses on there, so I basically added those to it. So it's just a case of you downloading the packages and they'll work straight away.
That's great. Thank you, Richie. Also, I should preface this with some of these may need more up-to-date editor packs. So if you try to download one and it doesn't work, you may need to go grab like the latest alpha editor pack. And that may also mean that you have to use for some of them. Some of them may not be compatible with the 1B viewer because we've added some new scripting SDK function since the last time the 1B viewer was built. So just as a general warning, some scripts that go up here will need to be recent editor pack, recent viewer. But we also added a very simple presentation board. So you can just put it up there, you put some textures in it, and you can flip back and forth through it like a PowerPoint presentation. Very simple. It's networked, so everybody in the scene. There's a cool little camera monitor up there. May not need a camera monitor necessarily, but it does have an interesting case into it, whereas the way it works is it watches your avatar. If your avatar sits on anything, no matter what it is, pops up and gives you some customized camera controls, and it works on any seat in the scene. Drop a new furniture item in there, and it'll instantly work on it as soon as you sit on it. It can be a furniture that's already embedded in the scene. You sit on it, they give you controls. So I've come up with many use cases already where it's just useful to know, hey, a player is sitting on something or they're not, and maybe you know what they're sitting on. And so that's a good example of how to get that information and how to handle the user sitting and standing and triggering events based on that happening. So that could be very useful. There's also a very simple one called activation event, which just watches for whether a particular object is set to active or inactive, and then can react to that object changing state and do something. Very simple, but again, oftentimes chaining a bunch of simple stuff together is how you get something really cool. Solving little problems leads to solving bigger problems. So there's some fun stuff up there. There'll be some new stuff being added, hopefully each week as we go along on a regular basis. And yeah, if you guys, I hope, can do some really fun stuff with that. Karsten says, Lua is fairly new to you. Quick question for sanity. Does Sciencebase Lua coroutine yield operate differently from regular Lua? It seems like it's those. There's a result being made automatically. Yeah, the coroutine yield is actually hooked into Unity's coroutines. Coroutines are it's a it's a Unity feature there, and so it's hooked into a coroutine that's tied to the object executing that. So yeah, when you're calling coroutine yield, you're calling the Unity for the start a new coroutine from a Lua script. That's what it's doing in the background, is setting up a Unity. And Cindy says Sciencebase needs more Lua support. Is holding back so much. By Lua support, I assume you mean people who can do Lua. Is that what you're looking for? Because we do have an extensive SDK. We better. We do need more documentation for it, which is something we're on. But I understand also that a lot of people are like, hey, I have a project I want to do, but I don't know any Lua scripters, and it's something we're actually actually struggling with as well, because we're trying to people on our team might be a web developer who's really good at JavaScript and PHP and that kind of stuff, but doesn't know Lua. And then we have some developers who are like really good with C# and C+ or Objective C or whatever. But again, Lua is not their strong point. And so we're trying to get more Lua developers within the company as well. And we are reaching out and seeing if we can just generally interest existing Lua developers in the platform for various reasons. So that is something we are working on. But yeah, it's a language that's been around for 20 or 30 years at this point. So there are a lot of people who do know it. It's just getting those people to come over into Sciencebase and help out with projects that need to be done. Yeah, it's fairly easy if you know other languages. Yeah, that's a good point. LSL it's a little syntactically weird. It's written more in the style of like writing words, like writing sentences than most languages are. Some people find that easier to work with, especially if they're learning Lua as like their first language. People who come from more structured languages, that are more syntax oriented, sometimes find it a little bit irritating. Like for example, you're doing logical comparisons in Lua and you want to say this or that, you actually just write the word or. Whereas in most languages, you'd put a double pipe or something. And I'm constantly switching back and forth between Lua and C#. And like syntax error, oh, I wrote OR into C#. Of course it doesn't like, or I put two pipes into Lua and it doesn't like. Switching back and forth between languages on a regular basis can lead to some syntax issues. Yeah, it's true that the Sciencebase staff, we've got so many projects already that we're doing that we do offer professional services, but it's contingent on us having the time and the schedule and availability to take on those new projects. Sometimes we can, sometimes we can't, and it's like I said, something we do want to get more people into the company who those kind of Lua projects. At the moment, I think there's Richie can some. He's actually getting pretty good at it, I think. But again, his schedule's full. I can do it, but of course my schedule's full, and we've got some other developers who can do it, but they've all got full plates, and all the developers that we have who do, who are proficient with Lua, that's not their only thing that they're doing. They also have to write on other languages. They have to do support stuff, and so we don't really have anybody who's just a Lua programmer and nothing else. AJ just now realized that that RMB stands for right mouse button. Yeah, it's pretty well known. It's pretty common usage of that. There's of course the other equivalent LMB for left mouse button. I don't see anybody using MMB very often for middle mouse button, but there you go.
I'm actually going to drop Paul. I'm actually going to drop Les in it here and actually let you know that I've been getting Les up to speed with Lua as well. So
That's great.
He's in the background scripting as well.
Les says, nope. You lie. The more people we have who can do it, the better. And I'm all for anybody who can find the time to increase their skill set is just great.
There's another Slido.
Yeah, let me have a look there.
And that's payback for you dropping me in it with Digi yesterday, Paul.
Okay, we got a little tit for tat going on here in the community team. So the question in Slido is Sidearms asking, cannot buy gold this morning. Is that specific with the 2B52 viewer? It must be a bug. It's probably a bug.
I was on 250 this morning, and then now I'm on 52. It just
both don't work, or
both. It's in an infinite. Well, it's a recurring loading.
okay.
It accepted both screens, and I clicked buy it, and now it's just loading. And then when I went out and came back in, it doesn't show. There shows no gold, and I'm assuming it doesn't show an actual transaction either.
Yeah, it sounds
Anyway.
like there's a network connectivity problem there. We'll open an issue with it, and the backend team can take a look at it and see what's going on there. Does it work through the website? Or is it just the viewer issue, or do you know?
I've only bought through the viewer. I'll have to try the website later.
Okay. I'll throw that at the back end team after the call here, and we'll see if we can figure out what it is, because obviously we want you to be able to do that. So it's probably a simple back end connectivity issue, or maybe something got changed in one of the recent viewers that needs to be looked at. I'm making note of that right now. Yeah, should be easy to sort out. So that's all the questions currently in there. We're actually just coming up on the top of the hour here. So if anybody has any questions, now's the time to throw them at me. Put them in chat. Put them on Slido. Put them somewhere, and we'll try and answer a couple more here if you've got some. But yeah, hopefully this was a good week back here. I saw somebody ask earlier. I think it was Mimi asked about my my anniversary. It actually went. It's actually really nice. The restaurant we usually go to for our anniversary is the one that we got married. I had a reception in, and we weren't sure whether they were even going to be open, this year with the whole COVID thing going on. So they were actually doing like curbside, and they were doing like these date night packages where they would make you food and pre-mix cocktails, and then you could have a Zoom one-on-one with the person who made your cocktails, and they could and had this little interactive thing going on, and we're like, well, maybe we can do that, and we called to set one up, and they were like, oh, actually we're opening the day before your anniversary, so you can actually come in, and they had everyone spaced really far apart, and masks to and from the tables, and all the wait staff was wearing masks and everything, so very reduced capacity, but the food was still amazing, so can't complain about that. Looking to see if I missed any questions here while I was rambling about that.
It's just good to have you back. Good to have you back, Josh.
Thanks. Yeah, let's see. Can someone try out the pool components? Not working, says Gabby. Spamming me with one-shot sounds. Yeah, Paul will help you with that. Looks like. It's good. It's good to just test if there's an issue with that. Then we can patch it in the next. Yeah, if there's a problem with the actual component, then that's something we can patch up real quick, and it'll go in the next viewer. I don't know if we. I honestly couldn't name an example of a pool in Sciencebase. I'm sure somebody's using the pool component, but I wouldn't tell you. We couldn't begin to tell you where to find one. I have a scene that has a lake in it, but I don't think I've got the pool component in there.
I think somebody made a spa going back a while ago. I can't remember who it was. I'm sure it went in the shop.
Yeah, I've got a couple scenes that have like lakes and rivers and stuff in there. Maybe I should throw the pool component in there just to, because why not go swimming in there? At the moment, they're just, I think, Aquas-based water systems, so you can go in there and get the bubbles and the lens distortion and stuff. But I think they're also water zones, so you can put boats on them, but I don't think they're swim zones.
And also, it's
Good.
good to see Surrey back. Just wanted to mention that. And
Yeah, I was
he-
just about to say that. Good to see you back. Sorry. Hope you're feeling
Yeah,
better.
yeah, I understand you weren't feeling well for a while there, so it's good to see you back on your feet.
And hint, hint, it's his birthday today, I believe.
Is it? Oh, well, we won't ask how old.
I'm sure he's
But
29.
happy birthday anyway. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm looking at Slido here, and there's one more question that came in, so let's tackle that. It says, can we get an update to the editor pack someday that marks the old components deprecated so we know not to use them? I guess I would ask which components specifically. I know there's like some old vehicle components in there. If they're not marked, then yeah, we could put a deprecated tag on them. If there's other old components that need to be marked, let us know which ones you encounter, and we can mark them. We don't want to break them, but we can certainly put a tag on them that says, "Hey, go use this." Some of them already have that on there, but we may have missed some. And I think we'll just leave it there then. So thank you everyone for coming to Office Hours this week. We'll be here next week as usual. And if you think of any questions between now and then, keep track of them or email them to me, or hold on to them and come dump them into next week's Tech Hour, and we'll have a look at those. I do want to say that from our last Tech Hours, there was some questions around maybe having hours that weren't tech related but were like marketing focused or something like that. And I did bring that up internally. So we are discussing that, whether whether we want to schedule a specific like marketing hour, or hour or something like that. So I will let you guys know if something moves forward on that. I know there's been a couple people who are interested in all those numbers and stuff. I don't have those numbers. That's not my job. I don't pay attention to it. But it's just a question of how much numbers we can share, publicly speaking. Yeah, if that's something that seems useful to do and somebody has the time to do it, then I'll let you guys know if that moves forward. So anyway, we'll just call it good there. Have a great week and weekend, everyone, and we'll see you next week.